Start with the invisible empire. Two companies, BlackRock and Vanguard. Combined assets, over $22 trillion as of 2025. That's more than the GDP of China, more than the entire US federal budget, and most people have never even heard their names. BlackRock alone manages $12.5 trillion. Vanguard controls over $10 trillion. Together, they own roughly 10% of the world's financial assets. Two companies, 10% of everything.
BlackRock owns shares in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, ExxonMobil, Pfizer, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, JP Morgan Chase, and literally thousands more. They're the largest shareholder in 90% of S&P 500 companies. That means they have voting rights. They influence corporate decisions. They decide executive salaries. They shape policy. When BlackRock votes, entire industries shift. Take their Aladdin platform. It's a software system that manages over $20 trillion in global assets. That's not a typo. 20 trillion. Banks, governments, pension funds, insurance companies, they all use Aladdin to make investment decisions. One system controlling 10% of the world's financial assets.
If Aladdin crashes, the global economy crashes with it. But here's where it gets darker. Vanguard is the second largest asset manager with over 10 trillion in assets. And guess who Vanguard's biggest shareholder is? BlackRock. And guess who BlackRock's biggest shareholder is? Vanguard. They own each other. It's a closed loop, a financial Ouroboros swallowing its own tail. And no one regulates them, because technically they're just managing other people's money. But when you control $22 trillion in voting shares, you don't manage money. You control governments. You control industries. You control the world. Still think elections matter? BlackRock and Vanguard own shares in Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, every major defense contractor. They own Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, every pharmaceutical giant. They own Fox News, CNN, Disney, Comcast, every media conglomerate. War or peace, pandemic or prosperity, Democrat or Republican, they always win. And the worst part? Vanguard is privately owned, no public shareholders, no transparency. Founder John Bogle set it up that way deliberately. The fund shareholders technically own Vanguard, but good luck finding out who actually makes the decisions. It's a black box at the center of global finance, a financial Death Star with no accountability.
They're not even hiding it anymore. In 2024, BlackRock acquired Global Infrastructure Partners for $12.5 billion. Then they bought HPS Investment Partners for $12 billion more. They're buying up private equity, private credit, infrastructure, energy grids, toll roads, airports, the physical backbone of civilization. And they're doing it with your retirement money. Because that's the genius of it. Your 401k, your pension, your index fund. It's all managed by BlackRock and Vanguard. You think you're investing for retirement. They're using your money to buy the world. And you have no say in how they vote those shares.
Carlyle Group and Serco. You've probably never heard their names. That's intentional. Start with Carlyle Group, a private equity firm managing over $400 billion. Sounds boring. It's not. They specialize in defense contractors, aerospace, weapons manufacturing, and government contracts. Their portfolio includes companies that build fighter jets, missiles, surveillance systems, and military vehicles. But here's the disturbing part. Their board has included former presidents, CIA directors, defense secretaries, heads of state, George H.W. Bush, James Baker, John Major, Frank Carlucci. These aren't investors, they're power brokers, using insider knowledge to profit from conflict.
September 11th, 2001. The towers fall. America goes to war. Carlyle Group's defense holdings skyrocket in value. They made billions, while families mourned. That's not conspiracy. That's documented fact. When chaos strikes, Carlyle profits. Then there's Serco, a British multinational most people have never heard of, despite operating in over 500 locations worldwide. $6 billion in annual revenue. What do? Run prisons, operate immigration detention centers, manage military bases, control air traffic, handle nuclear weapons facilities.
Let that sink in. A private corporation controls nuclear weapons facilities. They're not a government agency. They're a company, motivated by profit, handling weapons that could end civilization. In 2025 alone, Serco secured over $3 billion in new government contracts, £1 billion from the UK Ministry of Defence to recruit soldiers, another $1 billion for maritime services for the Royal Navy. Then they bought MT&S from Northrop Grumman and immediately won a $972 million contract to train U.S. Air Force pilots. They also locked in $150 million for U.S. Navy submarine support. And those are just the contracts we know about. Most of their work, classified, hidden behind national security. But Serco's history is darker than its contracts. Overcharging governments by millions, prisoner abuse scandals, data breaches exposing sensitive information. And nothing happens. No accountability. They just get more contracts.
Because here's the truth. Governments have outsourced essential functions to private companies, prisons, military training, border security, nuclear safety. And once you outsource something that critical, you can't take it back. Serco knows this. Carlyle knows this. They're too embedded to fail. War breaks out, defense contractors profit. Refugee crisis, detention centers profit. Nuclear tension, facility management profits. Peace or chaos, stability or collapse. They always win.
And Cargill. If BlackRock and Vanguard are the financial puppet masters, these two are the resource kingpins. They own the raw materials civilization depends on. Start with Glencore, a Swiss-based commodity and mining giant with over $250 billion in annual revenue. They mine copper, cobalt, zinc, nickel, coal, and oil. The metals in your phone? Glencore probably mined them. The cobalt in electric vehicle batteries? Glencore controls 30% of global supply. In the first half of 2025 alone, Glencore produced 343,900 tons of copper, 18,900 tons of cobalt, 465,200 tons of zinc, and over 64 million tons of coal. That's not a mining company, that's a resource monopoly.
But here's where it gets dark. Glencore has been accused of using child labor in cobalt mines across the Democratic Republic of Congo. Children as young as 6 digging through toxic waste to extract the mineral that powers your laptop. Multiple lawsuits, international investigations, and nothing changes. Because the world needs cobalt, and Glencore controls it. They've also been linked to environmental destruction across 3 continents. In Colombia, their coal mine displaced thousands of indigenous people. In Zambia, copper operations poisoned rivers with sulfuric acid. In Australia, their coal mines emit millions of tons of carbon every year. And the corruption? In 2022, Glencore pleaded guilty to bribery in the US, UK, and Brazil, admitted to paying over $100 million in bribes to government officials. The fine? $1.5 billion. Sounds big, but they made $250 billion that year. The fine was just a cost of doing business.
Now, Cargill, the largest privately held company in America, $177 billion in revenue, family-owned for 159 years, 0 public shareholders, 0 transparency. What do they control? Food, agriculture, meat processing, animal feed, crop trading. Cargill processes beef, pork, and chicken sold in every major grocery chain. They trade corn, wheat, and soybeans that feed billions. They produce palm oil used in everything from cookies to cosmetics. And because they're private, They don't have to disclose anything. No quarterly reports, no shareholder meetings, no accountability. The environmental impact? Cargill has been directly linked to deforestation of the Amazon. They buy soybeans from farms built on cleared jungle. Thousands of acres destroyed, indigenous communities displaced, ecosystems obliterated. And it continues, because cheap meat demands cheap feed.
They've also been accused of using slave labor in their supply chains. In 2021, former child slaves sued Cargill for buying cocoa harvested by children in West Africa. The case went to the Supreme Court. Cargill argued they couldn't be held responsible for their suppliers. The court agreed. No accountability. No consequences. And price manipulation. During the 2008 food crisis, Cargill and other traders were accused of hoarding grain to drive up prices. Millions faced starvation, while Cargill posted record profits. When food becomes a financial asset instead of a human right, people die, and companies profit. So think about that. Glencore controls the minerals that power modern technology. Cargill controls the food that keeps 7 billion people alive. Both operate with minimal oversight. Both have histories of exploitation. Both are too big to boycott, too embedded, too necessary.
Palantir. If BlackRock controls finance, Carlyle profits from war, and Glencore owns resources, then Palantir controls something even more valuable: information, data, your digital footprint. Palantir Technologies, $50 billion valuation. Founded by Peter Thiel in 2003 with funding from the CIA's venture capital arm, In-Q-Tel. Let that sink in. The CIA helped create the company. Named after the all-seeing eye from Lord of the Rings, they're not hiding what they do. They're advertising it.
Palantir builds data analytics and surveillance software for governments, militaries, and intelligence agencies. Their clients, the CIA, NSA, FBI, Department of Defense, Homeland Security, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The agency responsible for deportations. What does Palantir software do? It connects databases that were never meant to be connected. Facial recognition systems, phone records, social media activity, financial transactions, travel patterns, medical records, criminal history, employment data, family relationships, everything. Then it uses machine learning algorithms to find patterns, to predict behavior, who's a threat, who to investigate, who to arrest, who to target.
ICE used Palantir software to track undocumented immigrants and coordinate workplace raids. The system pulled data from license plate readers, utility bills, school enrollment records, and social media posts to map out entire families and communities. Then agents would strike. Hundreds detained, families separated, all powered by Palantir's algorithms. The Department of Defense uses Palantir software to identify drone strike targets in the Middle East. It analyzes cell phone metadata, surveillance footage, intercepted communications to decide who lives, who dies. A pattern match, a probability score, and a missile strike. No trial, no evidence in court, just data and death. Police departments across America use Palantir for predictive policing. The software analyzes crime data to decide which neighborhoods to patrol, which individuals to monitor. Minority Report wasn't fiction, it's a business model. And studies show it disproportionately targets Black and Latino communities because the algorithm learns from biased data and then replicates that bias forever.
And it's not just governments. Palantir sells to corporations too. JP Chase uses it to monitor employees and detect insider trading. Airbus tracks supply chains with it. BP used it to manage the Deepwater Horizon oil spill response. Pharma companies use it to analyze clinical trial data and predict drug efficacy. But here's the disturbing part. Palantir software is also used to monitor activists, environmental protesters, labor organizers, journalists investigating corporate wrongdoing. Energy companies hire Palantir to track people who threaten their operations, your social media posts, your location data, your email contacts, all mapped, all analyzed, all stored. During the 2020 protests after George Floyd's murder, multiple police departments used Palantir software to identify protesters. facial recognition from body cams and surveillance footage, cross-referenced with social media accounts. People were identified, tracked, and arrested days or even weeks after protests ended, not for violence, but for attending.
The problem? Zero transparency. Palantir doesn't disclose who uses their software, what data they collect, or how long they keep it. No oversight, no regulations, no appeals process, just surveillance sold to the highest bidder. And the data never disappears. Once they have it, it's permanent. Your digital ghost exists forever in their systems. Peter Thiel, the founder, a billionaire libertarian who said that democracy and freedom are incompatible. He doesn't believe in privacy. He doesn't believe in government accountability. He believes in power. And he built a company that gives governments and corporations the ultimate power: total information awareness. Palantir went public in 2020. Stock price soared. Revenue in 2024 over $2 billion. And they're expanding. More government contracts, more corporate clients, more countries. The United Kingdom, France, Germany, Australia. The surveillance state isn't American anymore. It's global. And Palantir is building it.
Now, Koch Industries, the final piece. $125 billion in annual revenue, privately owned by the Koch family, the second largest private company in America, after Cargill. What do? Oil refining, chemicals, fertilizers, pipelines, paper products, cattle ranching, pollution equipment manufacturing. But their real business is politics.
Buying it, shaping it, controlling it. For over 4 decades, the Koch brothers, Charles and David, built the most sophisticated political influence machine in American history. They didn't just donate to candidates, they built the entire infrastructure of modern conservative politics. Between 1997 and 2020, Koch Industries and their foundations donated over $145 million to organizations spreading climate disinformation. The Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, Americans for Prosperity, the Heartland Institute, dozens more. Think tanks that produce research papers, policy recommendations, and talking points that deny climate change, oppose regulation, and defend fossil fuel interests. These aren't fringe organizations, they're influential. Politicians cite their research. Media outlets interview their experts. Universities host their speakers. And the message is always the same. Climate change isn't real. Regulations hurt the economy. The free market will solve everything. It's propaganda, professionally packaged, academically credentialed, and it works. But it goes deeper. The Koch network hosts twice-yearly donor summits, where billionaires and corporate executives pledge hundreds of millions to fund campaigns, lobby efforts, and grassroots movements. In the 2012 election cycle alone, the Koch network spent over $400 million, more than the Republican National Committee. They don't just fund candidates, they fund the entire ecosystem. Voter registration drives in conservative districts, campaign ads attacking opponents, legal challenges to election laws, training programs for activists, media outlets amplifying their message. It's not a donation, it's an investment, and they expect returns. And they get them. Politicians who receive Koch funding vote against renewable energy subsidies 92% of the time, against pollution regulations 88% of the time, against corporate tax increases 96% of the time. The correlation isn't coincidence, it's cause and effect. Take the Keystone XL pipeline. Koch Industries stood to profit billions if it was approved. They spent years lobbying Congress, funding ads, pressuring the Obama administration. When Trump became president, one of his first acts was approving the pipeline. Coincidence? Trump received Koch backing during the 2016 primaries, after initially being opposed by them. And it's not just America. Koch Industries operates globally. Refineries in Europe,
fertilizer plants in Asia, chemical facilities in South America. And they lobby internationally against climate agreements, carbon taxes, and environmental treaties. When the Paris Climate Agreement was negotiated, Koch-funded groups worked to undermine it. When countries propose carbon taxes, Koch lobbyists fight them. The genius of it is plausible deniability. Koch Industries can say they're just exercising free speech, just participating in democracy. But when you spend billions shaping public opinion, funding politicians, and writing legislation, that's not participation, that's domination.
8 companies most people have never heard of control more wealth and power than most nations. They operate in shadows. They profit from chaos. And they've built a system where they always win.
If you want to know how they got this powerful in the first place, check out the video right here, or drop a comment below. Which company shocked you the most? Thanks for watching.